Admin support. Staff Sergeant Colby Reinhardt held the page at arm's length, the way a man holds something he wants the room to see him not respecting. Admin support. That's it. That's the whole duty line. He turned a slow half circle so the counter could hear him. Somebody sent us a printer with legs. 11 of the 14 people in the shop laughed. 0740 on a Monday. The S1 personnel shop of a Special Forces Group headquarters, second floor, east wing, 41 feet of counter, and a smell of toner and burnt coffee that never left the carpet. Rain outside on the parking lot. The in-processing line ran 9 soldiers deep and moved at whatever speed Reinhardt decided it moved. The woman at the counter did not laugh. She did not move. She stood with a manila folder squared flat against her thigh, the corner of it lined up with the seam of her trousers, and she waited. 47 years old. Blonde hair pulled back into a bun so tight it looked machined. Civilian slacks and a plain gray jacket. No patch, no tab, no ribbon rack. Nothing on her at all that said where she had been. Nothing to read. That was the point, and no one in the room was equipped to notice it. Reinhardt dropped the folder back on the counter. His thumb never left the top corner. The staple held 2 pages together, and he had only ever looked at one of them. He had held the second page under his thumb for 11 seconds. He never moved his thumb. Name. Amherst. Amherst. He typed it with 2 fingers. You're not on my Gaines roster. I'm on page 2. There's a page 2? He laughed again, and the shop laughed with him, and he did not turn the paper over. Sweetheart, in this building, there's page 1. Page 1 is what the system sees. If page 1 says admin support, you're admin support, and admin support means you sit where I put you. Understood. 3 syllables. Flat. The tone of a woman answering a radio. Specialist Nadia Kirschbaum, 21, watched from the second desk and put her eyes on her keyboard. She had been in the shop for 7 months and had learned in the first 3 that Reinhardt decided who was a person. From the doorway of the awards vault, Sergeant First Class Otis Bramlett watched too. 44 years old, 23 years in. 6 of those years in a different line of work before a helicopter came down in a riverbed and a surgeon told him what he would not be doing anymore. He had been the awards and decorations non-commissioned officer for 4 years, and he had gotten very good at watching people because there was nothing else in an awards vault to do. He watched the woman walk, outside line of the corridor, eyes level. She did not look at the floor, and she did not look at the people. She looked at the corners. Reinhardt walked her past 4 empty desks, 4 of them, all with chairs, all with monitors, all dark. He walked her past every one and into the copy room at the end of the hall, where a folding table sat beside a copier under a ceiling vent that dripped in August. On the folding table sat a stack of unworked packets 11 inches high. "This is you," Reinhardt said. "The shop runs on speed, not questions. You staple, you scan, you route, you don't think. Anything you don't understand, you bring to me. And if you bring me more than 2 things a day, I'll know you can't read." Understood. He waited for more. There was no more. Something about that bothered him for about a second and a half, and then he decided it didn't. At 0850, he sent her for coffee. He did it in the open, at the front of the shop, in front of Kirschbaum, and in front of 2 sergeants from Bravo Company who were waiting on assignment orders. Black, 2 sugars, the break room on the first floor, because the second floor pot was for permanent party. She went. She came back 4 minutes later with the cup and set it on his desk without a word. And she had not spilled a drop of it on the stairs. And nobody in the room understood that 4 minutes was faster than the trip should have taken, because she had already found the shorter stairwell. By 1000 hours, the shop had a name for her. Page 1. It started as one word from Reinhardt, and it moved through the room the way those things move, desk to desk, then into the group chat, then out to the companies. By lunch, 3 soldiers who had never seen her face knew the joke. At 1000 hours, she handed something back. It was a casualty report form, a routine one, a soldier's dependent information updated after a divorce. It had come out of the 11-inch stack. Reinhardt had signed the routing line 4 days earlier. "This one's wrong," she said. He didn't look up. "It's fine. Block 12 is coded for a spouse who isn't a spouse anymore. It'll route the notification to the wrong address. It's fine." Paragraph 2-19. Her voice did not rise. Table 2-4. It has to be recoded before it's scanned, or the system locks it for 90 days. Now he looked up. Not because she was right. Because of how she had said it. No hesitation between the paragraph and the table. No pause to remember. No screen open in front of her. She had produced a regulation, a paragraph, and a table, the way a person produces their own phone number. "Clerks," Reinhardt said, "do not cite regulations." He took the form. He scanned it as it was. In the doorway of the awards vault, Sergeant First Class Otis Bramlett lifted his head. Nobody in the shop noticed that, but he did not lower it again for a long time. 11 inches of other people's paperwork on a folding table. A woman reading every single page of it, one at a time, at a copier, while the shop laughed about a printer with legs. Tuesday, 07:10. The shop opened at 07:30. Amherst had been at the folding table since 10 past, because the cleaning crew propped the east stairwell at 05, and nobody had ever changed that. She had not started with the packets. She had started with the room, the badge reader by the shop door, the second reader on the vault, the camera above the vault door, and the angle it did not cover, which was the 4 feet directly under it. 2 exits, the main corridor, and the fire door at the end of the copy room that opened onto the east stairwell with a delay of 15 seconds, and an alarm that had been silent since a contractor pulled the wrong wire in 2024. She read all of that before she read a single face. She had done it Monday, too, and would do it every morning that week, and not one person in the building would ever see her do it. Then she started on the stack. The packet that mattered was 91 days old. A hardship duty pay action for a staff sergeant currently deployed. A man named on the form, and nowhere else in the building. It had been submitted, rejected, resubmitted, rejected, resubmitted, and rejected. 3 times. Each rejection came back with the same 4-word reason: incorrect supporting documentation attached. Amherst read it once. 90 seconds, front to back, including the enclosures. The supporting documentation was correct. The problem was in the routing block on page 1, where somebody had entered the losing unit's code instead of the gaining unit's, which meant the packet arrived at a finance office that had no authority over the soldier and bounced every time, automatically, in 9 seconds, without a human ever reading it. She wrote 2 lines in the margin in pencil: the regulation, the paragraph, the table, the corrected code. $1,140 a month. 91 days. $3,420 a family had already gone without, because a 3-digit number was wrong on page 1 and no one had turned to page 2, where the correct code was printed at the bottom in 8-point type. She set it on Reinhardt's desk at 0810. He glanced at it. "This one's dead. It's bounced 3 times. It'll clear now." It won't. It will. He pushed it into the system at 0819 to prove her wrong. It cleared at 0826. Bramlett was standing at the vault door when the confirmation came up on the shop's shared screen, and he did something he had not done in 4 years. He walked to the folding table, picked up the packet and read the margin. Then he went back to his own terminal and pulled the regulation. It was right. Not approximately right. Right to the sub-paragraph, right to the table, right to the note beneath the table that 99 people out of 100 never scrolled far enough to see. He came back to the copy room. "Where'd you clerk before this?" "Around." "Around. That's right." He looked at her hands. Short nails. No ring. A callus at the base of the right index finger, in a place a stapler does not put one. He looked at the way she had squared the stack. Every packet aligned. The whole 11 inches true to the table edge. The way a person squares things when squaring things has mattered. "You know," Bramlett said, "there's 4 empty desks out there." I noticed. "Yeah," he said. "I bet you did." At 0950 on Tuesday, she reached the bottom of the 11 inches. The last thing in the stack was not a packet. It was a manila folder. Soft at the corners, the way folders go soft when they have been handled, and put down and handled again over a long period by people who did not open them. She opened it. A line of duty determination. Opened the previous April. Status block. Pending. 3 routing slips stapled to the inside cover, each one initialed, each one in the same blue ink, each one moving the file from one suspense date to a later suspense date, and the last of those dates was 5 months in the past. She read the whole thing, both sides of every page, including the enclosures, including the 2-line handwritten note on the 3rd slip that said, "Hold pending clarification," and did not say what needed clarifying. There was a family attached to it. There is always a family attached to it. That is the entire purpose of the document. Amherst did not photograph it. She did not carry it out of the room. She did not put it in the second stack because it was not an awards packet, and it did not belong to the pattern she was building. She did the only thing that would survive. She wrote the file number, the open date, and the current date on the inside of her own folder, in pencil, in a straight line, in 8-point handwriting. Then she counted the days between the 2 dates, because she counted everything, and she wrote that number down as well. 426. She looked at it for a moment. Then she closed the manila folder and set it on the vault-bound pile, squared to the edge, exactly where a clerk with no vault access would be expected to leave a thing she had no business reading. Nothing in her face changed. Kirschbaum walked past the copy room door twice in the next 10 minutes and would testify later, honestly, that the woman at the folding table had been stapling. At 10:40, Reinhardt walked the fix upstairs. He walked it to the executive officer personally, and he explained personally that his shop had cleared a 91-day pay action that 3 previous submissions had failed to move, and he came back down 40 minutes later with a coin in his hand. He set it on the folding table beside her, face down. "Shop's got a rhythm," he said. "You're picking it up." He laughed and walked away. She did not touch the coin. It sat on the folding table for 2 more days, face down, and every person who came into the copy room saw it and understood exactly what it was doing there. A coin lying face down on a folding table, and the only person in the building who knew what it had cost to earn one saying nothing at all. Wednesday, the label went up on the copier at 0750. Somebody had run it off on the label maker in the supply closet, white on black, block capitals, and stuck it dead center above the control panel where nobody could miss it. Page 1. Kirschbaum printed it. She would say later, when it mattered, that she had not meant anything by it, and that would be true, and it would not help her sleep. 3 soldiers laughed when Amherst walked in with a stack. She read the label. She set the stack down. She loaded the first packet into the feeder and pressed the green button, and the copier ran. And she did not say one word about it, and that was somehow worse than if she had. The group chat came next. Screenshots moved desk to desk on Wednesday morning like a cold. Reinhardt's message sat at the top of the thread. Time-stamped, Monday at 0852, 4 words long, and 41 people had reacted to it. 3 of them were officers. Amherst never saw the chat. She did not need to. She could hear it, the specific pitch of a room laughing at something on a screen it is trying not to be caught looking at. She kept working. But on Wednesday, she started a second stack. It was small at first. 2 packets, set to her left instead of her right. Then 4. Then 7. By 1400 hours, there were 11 of them, and they had one thing in common that nobody at the folding table was supposed to be able to see. 11 award recommendations, all from the last 9 months. All downgraded by exactly 1 level. A Valor Award to a Service Award to a certificate, and all of them initialed in the same hand, in the same blue ink, in the same corner of the same block. Downgrades happen. A board reviews, a board decides, a board writes a justification into the file and signs it. There were no justifications in these files. There were no boards. There was an initial. Bramlett came into the copy room at 1410 for a toner cartridge he did not need. He looked at the left stack for a while. Left pile's getting tall. It is. You know what's in it? I do. Bramlett had been counting the same thing for a year. He had brought it up twice. The first time he was told it was above his pay grade. The second time his vault access hours were cut, which is the polite way the Army tells a sergeant first class to stop reading. He put the toner back on the shelf. "Careful, ma'am," he said, and then heard himself say it, and did not correct it. Reinhardt came in at 1520. He saw the left stack from the doorway, and he crossed the room fast, and he picked all 11 of them up. "These are vault packets." "They were in the stack you gave me. Clerks don't have vault access." He had them against his chest now, both arms. "You don't touch awards. You don't read awards. You staple, you scan, you root. That's the whole job. That's the entire job." Understood. He stood there a second longer, waiting for the argument, because he needed the argument to happen so he could win it in front of the shop. There was no argument. He took the 11 packets back into the vault and locked them in. If a woman sitting at a folding table can find 11 soldiers whose awards were quietly cut in 9 months, and the shop she found them in is the same shop that cut them, how many did she not find? And how many of those soldiers are still waiting on a letter that says what they did? Stay with this one. Subscribe to Honor Tales, because what happens in the next 4 days does not happen anywhere else. The 11 packets went back into the vault at 1524. The woman at the folding table had already read every one of them. Thursday, 1300 hours. Reinhardt's office was 8 feet by 10, and he had put a second chair in it, so people could sit down while he explained things to them. He slid a single page across the desk. "Sign it." It was a developmental counseling form. Kirschbaum's name at the top. A missed suspense on an assignment packet 9 days earlier, described in 3 sentences as a failure of attention to detail by a specialist who could not be trusted with routing. "Dated the 9th, Reinhardt said. Amherst read it, all of it, both sides, which took 11 seconds and annoyed him for every one of them. The suspense had not been missed by Kirschbaum. It had been missed by the person who had held the packet for 6 days before handing it to her at 1640 on the day it was due. And that person's initials were in the transfer block in blue ink in the corner. "No, Staff Sergeant." 3 words. Reinhardt sat back. "Excuse me. It's dated the 9th. Today's the 16th. That's when the counseling happened." It didn't happen. She set the page down on the desk, squared it to the edge, and left it there. And the regulation prohibits it either way. 620-6, paragraph 3-5. A counseling form is a contemporaneous record. It carries the date it's executed. Antedating one is a false entry in an official document, and it's the paragraph after that one that tells you what happens to the person who does it. There it was again. The regulation, the paragraph, the sub-paragraph. No screen, no pause, no hedge in her voice, No rising note at the end. Nothing that asked him to agree with her. Somewhere behind Reinhardt's eyes, a small animal turned over and went back to sleep. "That is not how it works here," he said. "Understood. You know what your problem is? You think this is a library." He was standing now. "This is a shop. Shops move paper. Nobody upstairs cares what paragraph you memorized in whatever basement they had you in. They care about throughput. And you have been here 4 days, and you have slowed my throughput every single one of them." "Understood. Get out." She got out. At 15:22, Staff Sergeant Colby Reinhardt typed a developmental counseling form of his own. Subject: Amherst. R. Civilian Temporary Personnel Augmentee. Insubordination. Failure to follow the direct instruction of a supervising non-commissioned officer. Refusal to execute assigned administrative tasks. Recommend removal from the section. He typed it in 9 minutes. He uploaded it at 15:22 on Thursday, the 16th of July, 2026. The system took it and wrote the time into a field. Then it wrote his credential into a second field. Then it wrote both of those things into a third place, an audit table nobody in that shop had ever seen, because nobody in that shop had ever had a reason to look, and it stamped that record, read only, permanently, in a way that a staff sergeant with shop-level permissions could not edit, could not delete, and could not backdate. He did not know that. He had never needed to know it. He had been the only person in the room who read the system for 900 days. Through the glass wall of the shop, Kirschbaum watched him type it. She could see the header of the form from her desk. She knew whose name was in it, and she knew the 9th was a Thursday, and she knew who had actually held the packet. She said nothing. That was the second time. At close of business, he pulled the copy room badge. He did it through the physical security portal, which took him 90 seconds, and it meant that after 1,700 hours, the woman at the folding table could not be in the building without an escort, could not reach the copier, could not reach the stack, could not reach anything at all. He walked past the copy room at 16:58 to watch her find out. She was already packing, squared the stack, aligned it to the table edge, set the pencil across the top of it, exactly parallel. "Badge is off after 17, he said. "Roger." "That's it?" "Roger?" "Roger." She walked out through the main corridor at 16:59 on the outside line, eyes level. A woman signed out of a building at 1700 hours by a system that had already written down every single thing the man at the keyboard did. Thursday, 2200 hours. The awards vault. Sergeant First Class Otis Bramlett had a coffee, a chair with a broken height lever, and the one query he still had permission to run. He ran it back 14 months, every award action processed through the shop, recommended level, approved level, the delta between them, and the credential of whoever touched it last. It took the system 4 minutes to build. It took Bramlett 11 seconds to see it. 11 downgrades, 14 months. All one credential. Then he widened it, because once a man starts, he does not stop. And he pulled assignment actions in the same window, and he found 3 that had been reversed after they were published. 3 soldiers, whose orders to schools they had earned, were pulled and reissued to 3 other soldiers, all within 9 days, all by the same hand. He sat with that for a while. Then he did something worse to himself. He narrowed the query to his own section and read the 11 downgrades by name. Number 4 on the list was a staff sergeant who had gone into a burning vehicle on a road in a country Bramlett had also worked in, twice, and had come back out of it with 2 people. The recommendation had gone up at one level. It had come back at another. The soldier had been handed a certificate at a company formation and had said, "Thank you," because that is what you say. Number 9 was a specialist, 20 years old, who had done 90 seconds of very correct work with a tourniquet on a training range in March. Number 11 was a name Bramlett had typed himself, in the vault, 14 months earlier, on the recommendation he had written for a sergeant who had been his own driver in a different life. He had written 1,100 words of justification for it. He remembered the ink. Approved level. 1 step down. No board. No justification in the file. An initial in blue in the corner of a block. Bramlett sat in a chair with a broken height louver and put both hands flat on the desk on either side of the keyboard and breathed for about a minute. Then he typed a name into the personnel system that he had no business typing because he had been thinking about a woman citing a table number for 3 days and it had gotten into his chest like a splinter. Amherst, R. The screen took 2 seconds. Then it returned 1 line. Access restricted. Refer inquiries to G2. Bramlett had 23 years in the Army. He had seen that line 4 times in his life. 2 of those times had been men he had served with in a different life, and one of them had a headstone with a date on it that was 3 years off, and Bramlett had never asked why. He sat in the awards vault at 22:41 at night and looked at a screen and understood all at once that the woman he had watched carry coffee up a stairwell on Monday was not a clerk. Friday, 05:50. The parking lot. Rain coming off the asphalt in a fine gray steam. Amherst was at her car, a plain sedan, 4 rows out. She had been there since 05:35, and she had watched him come out the east door and cross toward her the whole way. "Ma'am." "Sergeant, I ran a query last night I shouldn't have run." "I know. You know." The system emails the subject's control office when someone runs an unauthorized query against a restricted record. She said it without any edge at all. They emailed me at 22:43. Bramlett stood in the rain for a second. "Then you know what I saw." "I know what you didn't see." He laughed once, and it came out of him like something breaking loose. 23 years, 4 times. It's a small number. "Ma'am." He put both hands in his jacket pockets. "I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to go inside and do my job. That shop will bury you. Not fast. That's not how it does it. It'll do it in paper. In 90 days there'll be a file on you an inch thick, and every page of it will be true enough to survive a lawyer. I've watched it happen to better people than me. If you are who I think you are, ma'am, walk away from this one. Go do the thing you're actually here to do." The rain came down on both of them. "I don't walk away from paperwork," Amherst said. "Ma'am, there's a determination in that vault." She was looking at the building now, at the second-floor windows, at the one at the end. That was the copy room. Line of duty. Opened last April. Soldier's name doesn't matter to this conversation, and it isn't yours to fix, so I'm not going to say it. It's been open 426 days. Bramlett's jaw moved. 600-8-1, she said. The suspense on a line of duty determination is 90 days. 90. There's a family attached to that file who has been told for 426 days that it's being processed. And it is not being processed. And every one of those days, somebody in that shop had the ability to open the drawer. She opened her car door and took out her folder and closed the door again. So, no, not walking away. She went inside at 06:04, 426 days, and a man standing in a parking lot in the rain, realizing that the clerk in the copy room had counted them before he did. That is the part of this the shop never understood, and it is the part worth sitting with. She was not angry. Not once in 5 days. If you have ever watched somebody hold a room together with nothing but patience, stay with this. The next 24 hours are why the story exists. Subscribe to Honor Tales. Friday, 06:30. Temporary quarters. Building 9, Room 14. A single bed, a desk, a window facing a motor pool, a cup of coffee going cold on the desk beside a manila folder with 2 pages in it. The first page said what it had said all week: administrative support. The second page said everything else: clearance block, a compartment code, 4 letters, and beneath it the phrase that had ended Bramlett's query at 22:41 the night before. A ward line, 3 entries, 2 of them abbreviated to letters, 1 of them a device that does not get abbreviated. And then, at the bottom, a single administrative sentence in the same 8-point type as everything else on the page, carrying no more weight on the paper than a shipping date. Assumption of command, 28th of July 2026. Colonel Rosalind Amherst, United States Army, 47 years old. Born 1979. Commissioned in 2001 at 22. Company command at 28. And then, from 2011 forward, a career that existed in rooms with no windows and files with no titles, in a series of billets that the unclassified personnel system wasn't permitted to describe. Which is why, when a database was asked what her last job had been, the database said the only 2 words it was allowed to say: administrative support. She was 6 days from taking command of the group whose copy room she had been stapling in all week. That was not a mistake. Nobody had lost her paperwork. She had asked for the orders to be cut that way, and she had come in 5 days early, alone, without a driver, and without a call ahead, because a group commander who arrives to a formation only ever sees a group standing at attention. 2013. The part of it that mattered took 91 minutes, and she had never told it to anyone who did not already know it. She was 34 that year, Lieutenant Colonel Select, commanding a task element, call sign Stillwater, on a net where nobody used names. 6 men and 1 aircraft, and a night with no moon in it. Sergeant First Class Micah Vandergrift was 34 too. He had 2 years on her in the Army, and 11 days on her in the world. He had a daughter who was 12, and a photograph in his left sleeve pocket that was creased in 4 places because he took it out too often, and a habit of reading everything he signed, all the way through, which had gotten him mocked in more than one room. He was killed at 02:11. Lantern was the last voice on the net after that. 3 words, then a carrier tone, then nothing, and a search that ran 9 days and closed on the 10th. That was 2013. Here is 2014. Vandergrift's line of duty determination, the document that says a soldier's death happened in the line of duty, the document that unlocks every single thing a family is owed, went into a personnel shop 11 days after he died, and it sat there. It sat there while a packet clerk rotated out. It sat there through a change of command. It sat there while somebody's inbox got reorganized and somebody else's got archived. Nobody stole it. Nobody meant anything by it. It simply stopped being anyone's Tuesday. Amherst was deployed and unreachable for 11 of the next 14 months. 14 months. 426 days. A widow in a rental house making calls to a number that transferred her to a number. A 12-year-old girl who did not get a letter with her father's name spelled correctly on it, or the money, or the certificate, or any of the 11 things that were supposed to arrive and did not, because the document that started all of them was in a drawer. She found it in 2015, at 36, 4 days after she got back. She walked it herself, every signature, every office. 11 working days, on her own time, in dress uniform, standing at counters exactly like the counter Reinhardt ran, being told exactly what Reinhardt would have told her. She counted the days once, at the end of it, because she wanted the number. 426. She had never stopped counting anything since. That was the whole of it. That was the entire reason a colonel read other people's paperwork, line by line, and the reason she could produce a paragraph number the way other people produce their own birthday, and the reason she had taken a set of sanitized orders and walked into an in-processing line at 0740 on a Monday morning with nothing on her to read. She wanted to see the group the way it treated the person it thought was nobody. She had wanted to be wrong. Amherst put the second page back in the folder, face down, and squared the folder to the edge of the desk. Then she put on the gray jacket and went to work as a clerk for one more day. Friday, 11:20. Command inspection was Monday. The change of command was the 28th. A group headquarters in the week before both of those things is a building with its teeth showing, and Staff Sergeant Colby Reinhardt had a backlog with 11 inches of height and no chance of clearing it. He came out of the vault with all of it in his arms and put it down on the folding table hard enough to move the copier. Backlog goes in the shredder. He said it at volume. He said it to the room, not to her, because the room was the point. 2 soldiers stopped typing. Kirschbaum's hands came off her keyboard and stayed off it. All of it. The awards, the determinations, the whole left pile you've been playing librarian with all week. Command inspection is Monday. What isn't in the system doesn't exist, and what doesn't exist doesn't get counted against this shop. He tapped the stack twice with 2 fingers. Do it, or you're gone by Tuesday. The copy room went very quiet. Staff Sergeant, Amherst said. Don't. 25-400-2. Flat. Unhurried. The same voice she had used for the coffee. Records created in the course of official business are federal records. They cannot be destroyed outside an approved disposition schedule. There is no disposition schedule that authorizes destroying an open line-of-duty determination or an award recommendation that has not been finally acted on. And the paragraph after that one is the criminal one. It's 18 U.S. Code 20071. I don't care. I know. Do it anyway. He said it in front of 9 people. He said it at 11:22 on Friday the 17th of July, in a room with a camera over the vault door and 9 witnesses in it. And every single one of those 9 people heard a staff sergeant order the destruction of an open casualty file after being told, in specific and correct terms, exactly what that was. Amherst picked up the stack. She carried it the 11 feet to the shredder in the corner. She set it down on the console beside the feed slot, squared to the edge, and she reached out and turned the machine on. It ran. Empty. She stood beside it with her hands at her sides, and she did not feed it a single page. 30 seconds. 45. The shredder chewing air. The room listening to it. Nobody moving. Bramlett appeared in the doorway at 11:24, with his mouth already open. Amherst caught his eye and moved one finger, just the index finger, an inch, side to side. Wait. Bramlett was a man who had spent 6 years of his life reading hands in the dark. He shut his mouth and he waited, and his heart went somewhere up behind his back teeth. What are you doing? Reinhardt said. Running the shredder. You're not putting anything in it. No? Then what? It logs, Staff Sergeant. He stopped. Industrial shredders on a records floor log to the physical security system, she said. Machine identifier, badge credential of the person who authorized the cycle, date, time. Yours is the badge that unlocked this one on Monday morning, and it hasn't been recredentialed since. She looked at the little green readout on the console. 11:26. It's writing your number right now. Nobody in the room breathed. Turn it off, Reinhardt said. Yes, Staff Sergeant. She turned it off. And then, for the first time in 5 days, Colonel Rosalind Amherst smiled at him. It was a small thing. It lasted about a second and a half. It did not touch her eyes. It did not touch anything. It was not warmth, and it was not triumph. It was the expression of a person who has just watched the last piece of something arrive exactly where she needed it to be. Reinhardt looked at that smile for 1.5 seconds, and something in the back of his neck went cold, and he did not know why, and he would spend a great deal of the rest of his life understanding why. A shredder running empty in a silent room, and a badge number written into its log at 11:26. Friday, 1300 hours. The shop door opened, and Colonel Winston Farrow came through it. 52 years old, 29 years in, 3 weeks from handing off the group he had commanded for 2 years, and looking every day of it. Behind him came Command Sergeant Major Ezekiel Duhamel, 49, 6'4", who had never in his life walked into a room without changing its air pressure. Room, attention! 14 people came up out of their chairs. Amherst did not stand. She stayed at the folding table in the copy room, visible through the open door, with a stapler in her right hand and a packet in her left, and she did not move. Reinhardt was at the front, at his counter, spine locked, chin up, in the good posture of a man who has just been given a chance to be seen doing things correctly. At ease, Farrow said. He walked the length of the shop slowly, past the 4 empty desks, past the copier with the label on it. He stopped, and he read the label. Page 1, white on black, block capitals, and he looked at it for 4 full seconds. Then he turned around and looked at Reinhardt. Staff Sergeant. Sir. I'm here for a records check ahead of the change of command. Pull the incoming commander's orders. Yes, sir. Reinhardt was already typing. Fast. Glad to be asked. Incoming commander. I've got the packet, sir. It came through this shop Monday. I filed it personally. You filed it personally. Yes, sir. Read it to the room. Reinhardt's fingers stopped. Sir. Read it aloud. Farrow's voice did not change at all. All of it. Page 2 as well. The shop was so quiet the copier's cooling fan sounded like weather. Reinhardt looked at his screen. He read page 1. His voice was fine for page 1. Orders number, effective date, gaining unit, reporting instructions, and the duty line. 2 words that he had held at arm's length on Monday morning while 11 people laughed. Administrative support. Then the document scrolled. Page 2, Farrow said. Reinhardt read the clearance block. His voice got quieter in the middle of it, because a compartment code is 4 letters, and he had never seen those 4 letters on a screen in his life. He read the award line, 3 entries. He got through 2 of them. Then he read the last line on the page, the administrative sentence in 8-point type at the bottom that carried no more weight on the paper than a shipping date. Assumption of command, 28 July 2026. His voice failed on the name. Colonel Rosalind Amherst. And then the field beneath it, which he had not looked at, and which the system had filled in on its own on Monday morning at 0744. Filed by Reinhardt, Colby M., SSG, HHC. Nobody said anything. Reinhardt's face did 4 things in 11 seconds, and they came in order, the way they always come. First confusion, a small frown, the look of a man waiting for the sentence to correct itself. Then disbelief, his eyes going to the counter where the folder had been on Monday, to the exact square foot of laminate where he had held a page down with his thumb. Then recognition, his head coming up and around, past Farrow, past Duhamel, down the length of the shop, past the 4 empty desks he had walked her past, to the copy room door, to the folding table, to the woman in the gray jacket with a stapler in her hand, who had said understood to him 9 separate times in 5 days. And then horror, which is not a loud expression. On Colby Reinhardt, it was mostly his mouth going slack, and both hands coming off the keyboard and settling on the counter, palms flat, like a man steadying himself on a boat. Specialist Nadia Kirschbaum put both hands over her mouth. Room, Duhamel said. Attention! 14 people came up a second time, and this time, Colonel Rosalind Amherst set the stapler down on the folding table, squared it to the edge, stood up, and walked out of the copy room and down the length of the shop on the outside line, eyes level. Command Sergeant Major Duhamel brought his hand up. She returned it. "Ma'am," Farrow said, "I'd have sent a car." "I know, sir. That's why I didn't call." She turned to face the shop. Nobody in it moved. Reinhardt's palms were still flat on the counter. "Staff Sergeant Reinhardt," she said. "Ma'am." "Thursday, 15/22. You uploaded a developmental counseling form on me. Insubordination and failure to follow instruction. The system wrote your credential into the filing field. That field is not editable at shop level. Ma'am, today, 11/26, you authorized a shredder cycle in this section after ordering the destruction of 11 award recommendations and 1 open line-of-duty determination in front of 9 witnesses after being advised of the governing regulation and the criminal statute. The physical security log has your badge on the cycle." Her voice never went up. Not once. 25-400-2, she said. 18 U.S. Code 20071, Article 107. Sergeant Major. "Ma'am, military police, please." They took him at 1341. He did not say anything on the way out. He looked at the copier as he passed it, at the label above the control panel, white on black, block capitals, and then he was through the door and gone. Farrow waited until the corridor door closed. "You could have told me Monday," he said quietly. "I'd have kept it." "I know you would have, sir." "Then why?" Amherst looked down the length of the shop. 4 empty desks, a folding table beside a copier at the end of a hall. "Because he'd have been careful," she said. "For 5 days he'd have been the best staff sergeant in this building, and Monday morning that shredder runs full instead of empty, and a 19-year-old girl in a rental house 2 towns from here never finds out why her mail stopped in 2014. She turned back to him. "I didn't need to catch him, sir. He wasn't hiding. I needed the shop to still be doing it when somebody with a signature was standing in it." Farrow was quiet for a moment. 29 years, he said. "I have signed off on this section's readiness 8 quarters in a row." "Yes, sir." "Say the rest of it, Colonel." "There isn't a rest of it, sir. The section reported 94% throughput every one of those quarters, and it was true. Throughput was never the thing to measure. That's not a failure of character. It's a failure of the question." Farrow looked at the label on the copier for the second time that afternoon. Then he crossed the room, took it off the machine with his thumbnail, folded it in half once, and put it in his breast pocket. "Sergeant Major," he said, "get her a desk." "There's 4, sir," Duhamel said. "I'm aware." 14 people standing in a personnel shop, and the only person still holding paperwork was the one they had called Page 1. The cascade took 72 hours, and it ran on the shop's own audit trail. 11 award recommendations pulled, reviewed by a properly constituted board, and restored to their recommended levels. 9 of them to men and women who had already left the unit and who received a phone call from a colonel personally because she made all 11 calls herself over 2 evenings from her own office with the door open. The 4th of those 11 calls went to a staff sergeant who had gone into a burning vehicle and brought 2 people out of it, and who was now a civilian in a state 4 time zones away, and who did not believe her for the first 90 seconds. "Ma'am, I already got the certificate." "You got a certificate. You were recommended for something else. A board sat on it Tuesday, and the board agreed with the recommendation." There was a long pause on the line. "Who found it?" "A clerk," Amherst said. "Ceremony's the 11th of August if you want it. If you don't want it, it goes in the mail, and either one of those is the right answer." He wanted it. 3 assignment actions reversed. 3 soldiers who had lost school seats they had earned got them back. and 3 others learned in a very quiet way what had been done on their behalf without their knowledge. And 1 line of duty determination, 429 days open by the time it was found, closed and signed inside 72 hours. Staff Sergeant Colby Reinhardt was relieved for cause and held for court-martial on destruction of official records and false official statement. There was almost nothing to investigate. Every element of the case had been generated by him, time-stamped by the system, and written into a table he did not know existed. A man convicted, in the end, entirely by his own filing. Sergeant First Class Otis Bramlett got the awards vault, not access to it. The vault, with the authority, in writing, to hold any action in the group and route it directly to the commander over any signature in between. "You've been counting for a year," Amherst told him. "Now you get to count out loud." Bramlett looked at the paper for a while. 23 years, ma'am," he said. "That's 4 times I've seen that line on a screen. This is the only one that ever came back." Specialist Nadia Kirschbaum came into the outer office on Monday morning with 2 things in her hand. The first was a printed screenshot of a group chat, 41 reactions on the top message, and every name in it visible. The second was the strip of backing tape from the label maker in the supply closet, the negative of what she had printed on Wednesday morning, still legible in reverse. Page 1. She had gone and found it in the bin. She put both of them on the desk. "I laughed on Wednesday, ma'am," she said. Her voice went at the end of it, and she made it keep going anyway. "And I watched him type that counseling on you Thursday through the glass, and I didn't say anything. And I saw who really missed that suspense on the 9th, and I didn't say that either. Nobody's asked me about any of it. I want it written down, too." Amherst looked at the tape for a moment. "It's written down," she said. "Statement to the Sergeant Major by close of business. Everything, including the parts about you." She slid the screenshot into a folder and squared it. "Then go work. You're the only person in that shop who knows where the 2014 archives are, and I need them by Thursday." Kirschbaum stopped at the door. "Ma'am, is it true you stood at a counter like mine for 11 days once?" 12, Amherst said. "I counted wrong the first time." Here is the thing nobody in that shop could have known on Monday morning. She could have ended it in 11 seconds. Any hour of any of those 5 days, she could have turned 1 page over and stopped all of it. She let it run because the only way to find out what a building does to a person with no rank is to be the person with no rank. If that landed for you, drop a comment and stay with us. Subscribe to Honor Tales, because this is the story this channel exists for. Saturday. 2 towns, off-post, a street with no sidewalk, a house with a carport, and a basketball hoop with no net. The girl who opened the door was 19. She had her father's jaw and her mother's eyes, and the extremely careful politeness of somebody who has answered a lot of doors for people in uniform. Amherst wasn't in uniform. She had a folder. "Miss Vandergrift?" "Yes, ma'am." She handed it over. Inside were 3 things: a corrected line of duty determination, signed and dated, a certificate with the name spelled correctly, which it had not been on the first one in 2014, and a letter from a finance office with a number on it and a date 14 months earlier than the date at the top of the page. The girl read the first page standing in her own doorway. Then she looked up. "Sergeant First Class Micah Vandergrift," Amherst said. 1979 to 2013. He read everything he signed all the way through. People gave him a hard time about it. She did not say anything else. There was not anything else that belonged to her to say. She walked back to the car. That night, the phone on the passenger seat lit up at 2341. No contact name. A number with a country code she had not seen since 2013. 3 words on the screen. An old greeting. One that had never been written down anywhere. One that only 6 people had ever known, and 4 of them were dead. Underneath it, A photograph. A harbor at dusk. 4 cranes against an orange sky, and the third one from the left missing its arm, exactly the way it had been missing its arm on a night with no moon in it, 13 years earlier. And underneath the photograph, one word: lantern. Colonel Rosalind Amherst sat in a parked car on a street with no sidewalk and looked at a call sign that had been dead for 13 years. Then she put the phone face down on the seat, exactly square to the edge, and started the engine. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to Honor Tales for more.